Hello everyone. So today we are going to see what is cryptography and some protocols with respect to the security. So anyone have ever learned about what is cryptography and its various form? What is actually cryptography? If you are aware about this term. Anything, if you are knowing anything about the cryptography and the security encryption, you can simply write in the chat box, because this is what something has a penetration tester or has a security expert, you should know at least the basics of this. So this is actually helping you to make your data more confidential and no unauthorized access will be there. Okay, Dilip Kumar is saying it's encoding. Okay, so let's just start with the very first topic, mechanism to hide data. Okay, it's mechanism to hide data, Saurav is saying. Okay, now let's see what is actually the cryptography. Cryptography is nothing but, you can say, where you are trying to make your communication more secure. But how you are going to make this communication secure? So for that you are trying to use certain cryptographic techniques to make your communication confidential, and the data should not be tampered, you can say, or this data should not be read by the unauthorized person. So there should be no unauthorized access of this data. So this is where your cryptography comes in case of data security, you can say, where you are trying to secure your data. Yes, Anand Kumar, Ishwar, Anand, you're absolutely right. It's a kind of changing your plain text to the unreadable format, and you can only have an access if you are the authorized person and with the proper decryption key. Absolutely. So a lot of you are knowing what is this cryptography, but cryptography, if you can see, it's majorly formed from these two words, that is crypto and graphia, where it's mean, crypto means to hide something and your graphia means of writing, and this is basically your Greek word originated. But the important thing about cryptography is it's talking about the principle, like your security principle element, and in this it's talk about the three element, that is your confidentiality, integrity and authenticity, to check the information which is being transmitting over the sender to the receiver. So how many elements do we have in cyber security? Because this is what we have learned in the previous session as well. So anyone can list out the elements of the cyber security. Dilip Kumar is saying CIA. Yes, I have taught you more than this three triad, that is CIAAN. Yes, Anand Gupta, you are absolutely right. Anand Kumar, you are also absolutely right. I am talking about this three principal elements, not three, you can say five, and how this all the five elements are covering in your cryptography. You can see one by one. Now, cryptography is just not only talking about the authorization, authentication, or about just the integrity of your data, but it's also trying to safeguard, or you can say it's trying to make your confidential data to reach to the authorized person only. And that data could be anything: your digital payments, your messages on the social media platforms, even your online banking, everything. So this is where your cryptography takes place. Before that, cryptography is not something new to the era of the technology. Cryptography has a one of the good history. Why I'm saying? Because earlier, when there was spy, or the countries are using the spy agents to the other countries to gather the information, at that time also there was a cryptography, but that cryptography, you can say, has a traditional cryptography, where you can see people are using some kind of special languages, some kind of secret codes to exchange the information, or you can see even the Morse code. So these are the traditional way of sharing the secret messages, and this is also a cryptography. So cryptography is having a huge and one of the great history for the transformation of the sensitive data. Now let's talk about the modern cryptography. So modern cryptography is something where you are talking about the data, about the person, but in more advanced way. Why? Because modern cryptography is almost which is dealing with the day-to-day life. You can say either your online transactions, either your internet browsing details, either your cookies being stored, your password manager saving your credentials like your username, password, website history, everything. So this is where we have different types of modern cryptography. That is, you have symmetric key cryptography, asymmetric, hash functions, digital signatures, cryptography protocols, and one of the advanced cryptography, or you can say the modern cryptography we are having right now, is quantum cryptography. So quantum cryptography is something that is highly secure, and it's not that easy to decrypt for a beginner. So let's see one by one what is this symmetric key and asymmetric key talking about. Symmetric key, you can say something where you are using a simple one key, which is you are saying as public key, and this public key is same and it is with both the people, with the sender as well as with the receiver. Now over here in this technique of, you can say, the symmetric key cryptography, there is high chances of getting that public key steal, and once that public key is steal or modified, there are chances that your data could be in wrong person's hand. So someone is trying to misuse your data. So symmetric key is not that much better for the high confidential data. So that's the reason we are having asymmetric cryptography. In asymmetric cryptography, we are having two different keys. One is the private key and the other is the public key. Now what actually this asymmetric cryptography is helping to the user is that the only intended or the authorized person can decrypt the key, and he is not willing to share that private key with anyone else. And if he is the authorized person, he or she will having that particular key. So that's the reason your asymmetric is much more better than your symmetric cryptography. And one of the best thing is that in asymmetric, because you are using two different key, that is public key as well as private key. So to check whether the key or whether that key which you are sharing is modified or key has been stealed or not. So for checking the key authentication, you have one of the very good algorithm, that is Diffie-Hellman key exchange. So you can use that as well to check the authenticity and integrity of that particular key. Now let's talk about the hash function and digital signature. So I might guess everyone has heard about the hash. But what is the need of having this hash function, a different entire different domain in cryptography? Because hash is something which is taking your digital fingerprintings, not exactly your biometric fingerprinting, but it's trying to store your digital signature over the internet. Because every time for simple storing a 8 length or 12 length character password, you are not going to deploy such a big heavy algorithm like asymmetric and symmetric, because it's very complex to uh, you can say it's very complex for the people to apply this particular algorithm just for a simple passwords and for digital signature. So that's the reason we are using hash functions, because hash is something that is unique every time and different with respect to the other values. The very first advantage of using the hash is that. The second advantage of using this hash is that you are having a variable length input. Okay, now the utmost importance of using this hash function, you can say, is that you can simple or easily uh, get back the password. Like you can crack the password very easily by using this particular hash functions. So at any time if you are not able to recall the password, you can use this hash functions and you can get back your password, and you can decrypt the folders or any files which is having this particular hash function. So that is where your hash is very useful, and you don't have to deploy certain complex symmetric and asymmetric cryptography. Now we are having digital signature has a different part in cryptography. Now every time when we are talking about cryptography, it's about some keys, it's about having some mathematics, algorithms, its functions. But when we are talking about digital signature, so digital signature is very sensitive to us, because it might store some of the people's bank accounts details, their username, their id, any stuff regarding to that particular individual or to that organization. So it is very sensitive. So for actual, you can say, checking the digital signature, an entire different algorithm has been built. So you can see whenever you are browsing for the digital signature, a very warm and you can say very customized step by step you are getting the digital signature checking methods, not only for the exact digital signature but also the certifications. Whenever you are trying to install a software, whenever you are deploying certain lab setups, at every time, or even though the ISO images, at that time you are getting certain kind of certificates. So that certificates are verified or not, it is the whether it is corrupted or it is the uh, provided from the official website or not, how you are going to check based on the signatures, based on its pgp keys, you can say. So this is where your digital signature plays a one of the good role for checking the sensitivity of your data. But also digital signature talks about your non repetition element, because the work which is been already done by you, you cannot negotiate or you cannot take back your words that you have not done certain amount of work or this particular work has been not done by you. So your digital signature also talks about the non repetition. So this is where your digital signature comes. Now we have different cryptography protocols. So in cryptography protocols, we are talking about different protocols, that is PGP, SSH, SSL and TLS. So this is where your different types or modern cryptography came. So I hope now you guys are very much clear about the traditional cryptography and the modern cryptography. because Morse code, ASCII, and base 64, these are some of the traditional code. But here what am I displaying right now is the modern cryptography, which is being used on the daily purposes in your certifications, in your normal applications. Now let's talk about some protocols, security protocols. So security protocols are something which are talking about certain rules, procedures, and how you are exchanging the information with proper, using all the principle or the elements of cybersecurity, that is your CIA. Okay, confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. Now it's in security principle, not only your concern about the data, but also the person who is using, on which device, on which particular system, whether how much risk is there, how to identify those vulnerabilities. With respect to that, all the certain scenarios you are going to check and overlook in the security protocols. Now let's see the different protocols. So we have listed few of the protocols over here. So the very first that we are having is TLS and SSL. So everyone is know that TLS and SSL are something that talk about the security protocols, and we have talked about this TLS and SSL. So anyone could just simply say what is this TLS in your simple words. What is TLS and SSL? Exactly, Anand Gupta. It's provide a secure communication. Okay, Shiva Sai is writing it's the newer and more secure version of SSL, both used to encrypt data. Yes, exactly. We are using to encrypt your data on the internet. So that's what we are talking, because over here, if you can see the statement, it's saying that whenever the person is applying TLS or SSL on their emails, on the any particular websites, at that time there are high chances that there will be prevention from certain amount of eavesdropping, data tampering, and your forgery of the data. So this is where we use this TLS and SSL. Now let's talk about IPsec. IPsec is nothing but it's talking about how you can secure the internet. Not exactly the internet, but how you can secure the internet protocol security. Now when we are talking about the internet, we are using a lot of stuff, but for majority of the time, like if you are trying to have a remote access from a different location, if you are using putty or any RDP connection, or either one of the best example is you are either trying to make a VPN tunnel connection, at that time it is high chances that your data on the internet might get steal, or there is something forgery of your data could happen. So at that time, in this network layer, we should deploy the IP security. This will eventually provide certain kind of protocols which will help you to make the confidentiality of your data, as well as it's talking about the person, like anyone who is trying to get the remote access to another system or another network. At that time, the very first protocol or the very first security measure this protocol will take is to check the person's authentication, whether that person is authenticated and verified for using this particular application services in this network or in this system or not. So there is so over here IP security is helping you to have a safe communication on the internet for the remote access, you can say that. Now let's talk about SSH. So SSH is something which is almost talking about the data where you are sharing the files remotely. Exactly, you are trying to share remote data by using SSH. So why we are using SSH, you can say, because SSH is one of the very easiest method to have a remote access to someone else's computer. Second, the important thing why majority of the person is using SSH is you can securely. Yes, sort of. IPsec is in your network layer, because whenever you're talking about the network layer, at that time only you're using certain kind of tunneling and all that. So this is where your IP security take place. So SSH not only talks about the remote access, but it also talks about the transfer of the file. So sometimes it happens that the file which you are trying to transfer by using this SSH protocol, it might take a place that someone or the man in the middle attack could possible, or eavesdropping, high chances of both of this. So at that time you should require a certain amount of protocols which will help you to maintain the integrity and confidentiality of your data. Now we have PGP, or you can say as GNU PG. So what is this term? If you can see, it's saying that it's a pretty good privacy. It's a GNU privacy guard. So have you guys ever heard about this term PGP, GPG? You can write your answers in the chat box that what is GPG, PGP. Because PGP itself claiming that I am a pretty good privacy. Okay, Shiva Sai is writing the answer that it's a secure or encrypted way of having the emails and files. Yes, exactly. You can use PGP and GPG for that, but also you can use it as a digital signature. Because if you're trying to download a particular ISO image, at that time, how you will going to verify that that particular ISO image is exactly the right image or it's from the official website and there is no modification, so at that time you can use it. Also you can use it for the email. Now let's check for the GPG version. So you can simply use GPG hyphen version. So over here you can see that it's displaying me that I am having which version on which path it is having. Also it's providing me with some sort of public key, some sort of cipher, some sort of hashes. So this all you can use for creating your entirely different algorithm for one of the best email. So right now let's try to have, or you can say let's try to create this particular GPG using this GPG we are trying to just create a algorithm. So not exactly algorithm, but we are trying to create a secure email for ourselves. So what you can simply do, you can simply type this command, that is GPG export full gen key. Now this command will actually provide you menu or the options to choose what algorithm you want to get. So over here there are 14 different stuffs I have right now, that is RSA, DSA, ECC and ECC. So ECC is something talking about your elliptical curve and it's entirely based on the mathematical concept. So let's try to check what is this ECC talking about. So once you have chosen this particular ECC, that is elliptical curve, you are provided with more different option, that is brain pools, pack, curve, nist. So just try for the curve. So when you are trying for the curve, you are getting that please specify how long the key should be valid. So this is where you can use to customize your keys, that how many days, weeks, months or years your key should be there. So right now just I am trying for basically for 1 day. So it's saying me that your key will going to expire sharp at 7:40 IST on Sunday. So is this correct? So yes, it's correct. Now you can try to give some names for it. So I am trying to give Ubuntu and email address. Suppose I am giving some random email address. Now it will ask me some kind of comment, so you can leave it as blank as well. So this is where your user ID is created with the name, that is ubuntu1234 at the gmail.com that we have provided. And now it's asking you whether you want to change any of this stuff like name, comment, email, or you are good to go. So right now what I am trying to do, I am trying to say okay, everything is good. Now you can try some passphrase to protect your new key. So you can provide any kind of passphrase. So you can see, as soon as I have provided the passphrase, the public key has been created for it, user ID is created, and the subcategory along with the expiry date. So you can easily use this GPG to create customized keys, public key, private key for your emails, for the secure transfer of your data. So this is how you can customize and create your own key using cryptography. So now let's talk about the different protocols where we are REST. So I hope everyone is clear how you can easily use this particular GPGs to create and customize your email security. Now let's talk about the encryption and decryption. So cryptography is something you're trying to change your plain text into the certain kind of secrets or certain different languages where a person who is not having the authorized access cannot use or cannot see that particular data. Now encrypting and decrypting is something where it's talk about how you are trying to protect your data. So let me be very clear that cryptography is a technique where it's holding different forms of encryption and decryption, and it's making your plain text in a certain desirable format where anyone or any guest, anonymous or unauthorized person should not have the access to read that particular amount of data. If they are trying, so they will be displayed with some gibberish data. But encryption and decryption is actually talking about how you are trying to serve that data, how you are trying to protect that data, how you are trying to maintain the integrity and confidentiality of data. So this is where your encryption and decryption came place. Now we are having different techniques for encrypting and decrypting the data. If you can see, the very first form which is divided over here is symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. In symmetric, you are having block ciphers and stream ciphers, and because symmetric is using the very first drawback of the symmetric is that it's using only one key, and that key itself is a public key. Second thing is that the storage or the protection, you can say, of this encryption is in the block and stream format. So it's very easy for the attackers to reverse it. So that's the reason symmetric encryption is not that much advanced and not that much used by everyone. Whereas if you can see, on the other hand, we are having asymmetric encryption. In asymmetric, RSA and ECC is something that is being used widely by the organizations, by whether using it in the raw form or by using in the hybrid way. So you can use both of these or either any one of these to get one of the best encryption. Now hybrid encryption is something where you are having a fusion of both, you can say symmetric, asymmetric and key exchange techniques, all of the three, or either you are having the two also. But key exchange technique is not based on only one way, that is Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and the second we are having is key derivation functions. So key derivation functions are very complex, not to design but also to implement. So that's the reason Diffie-Hellman is something that is easy to conceptualize and easy to implement. So if you really want to check for the key exchange, you can use as a basic understanding Diffie-Hellman key. Instead of this, we are having hash functions, authentications techniques. Now authentication techniques, we are having two different techniques. One of the most known techniques is digital signature, and second we are having is message authentication codes. So whenever you guys are hearing this term, that is the different authentication technique we are having MAC, so please don't say that it is a media access control. It is a message authentication code. So in this message authentication, what we are trying to do, we are trying to check for certain messages which is having certain kind of codes, you can say hidden messages in the text or in the plain text, in the image, in Excel sheet, in the emails, in any form. The code will be hidden and you have to authenticate or you have to fetch that code. So that's where you are using the message authentications code. Now let's check for the different tools. When you want to encrypt this tool or decrypt this tool, you have various names, various graphical command line tools. So some of these tools I have listed, that is one of this is OpenSSL. You can use OpenSSL for the SSL and TLS as well. And also we are having GNU, VeraCrypt, TrueCrypt, OpenSSH, Hashcat. So Hashcat is not only used for the password purposes, or you can say the Hashcat is having more usage than the passwords. Now let's talk about some more tool, that is you're having Botan, PyCrypto. Now PyCrypto is a tool which is entirely talking about your Python language. So it's one of the best tool for that purposes. And you have Cryptlib. So Cryptlib is having all the libraries, you can say, with respect to the cryptography. So these are the some tools which have been listed over here. Now let's try to check whether any actual command or any actual stuff we can do or not. So for that, if you can see, one of the best tool you can use in any CTFs or in any hacker program is your cyber chef, because majority of the time it happens that you cannot go for a specific tool because they are almost automated. So over here, if you guys can see, it's one of the platform where you can practice for the different CTFs. So over here, if you can see, this is the code, or you can say a message. They are asking you to decrypt, or it will generate a flag. So you can use the cyber chef to get certain amount of flag. So right now, if you can see that I am not aware about like what kind of language it is. So the very best way you can check for base 64. Now why I am saying base 64, because base 64 is something that holds all the ASCII character. And if you are aware about the ASCII character, you are very well aware that over there in ASCII we are having different codes for all the uppercase, lowercase, symbols, special characters. So simply just let's try and check whether it's giving me a flag or not. So over here, I have successfully fetched that information from this particular unreadable form of the code, and I have got the output, and it's nothing but it's CTF flaggy waggy raggy. So that's the purpose of this cyber chef, that it's not helping you only to understand the algorithm, but also you can use different cryptographics and different platforms to explore these algorithms. So guys, do you have any questions regarding this cryptography and security protocols? You can ask over here. Attendance link has been shared with you guys. Kindly fill the attendance. Anand Gupta, PKI is talking about your public key. You want the component and working process of the PKI. So PKI is just actually, you can say, working exact the same way as your other cryptographies are working. But in PKI, you are rather more concerned about the key exchange method. You are trying to secure that key, how that key is being shared with the sender to the receiver. Anand, in PKI, you are trying to check for the key. Like in a very layman language, I can simply give you a glance about it. It's like the very first thing right now, if you have seen in the my Ubuntu machine, is that I am trying to generate a key, and after that I was trying to provide a algorithm, that is ECC. After that I have tried for the key expiration date, and then we have tried to provide certain passphrase. So that is where your PKI, that is public key infrastructure, take place, and it having its own life cycle. And in a very short span, frame, if I will frame it, it's like you're trying to generate the key, the very first thing. Second thing, you're trying to make a connection of that key or establishment of the key, and then you're trying to store that key. Because once you have created the particular key with some good algorithms or using certain mathematics techniques, the important thing is that you have to store that key. How you are storing that key, on which servers? So this is the third and the most essential steps in your public key infrastructure. After that, the usage of that key, whether you are using that particular key for the certifications, for the data transformations, or for what purpose. So the usage should be clear of generating that key, because as you have seen right now, we have generated that key for the email purpose. So the fourth step is that you have to be very sure that what is the usage of that key. And lastly, you are having archival sections or destruction of key, because as we have seen, while generating the keys, we are having option that what is the expiry date of the key. So what we have done right now in the Ubuntu machine is that we have deployed that entire PKI, that is your public key infrastructure. Like from starting generating, establishing key, it's allocating the usage, how that key should be stored, and at what time it's having the particular desired expire time. Because then only you are having a secure communication over this data. So I hope now you are clear about this PK item. Okay, if no questions are there, we can end the session. Thank you guys.